Hi, thanks very much. I'm honored to be here and glad to hear about all of these broad scale and broad topical things. I'm going to talk about a single scale, which is national, and a single kind of topic, environment. I'm going to talk about EPA's efforts to open up data and increase citizen engagement. So just briefly, we're going to give you some background. I'll talk about how open data itself can connect to results and outcomes like environmental benefits. I'll talk about how EPA is creating or putting together the elements of a green apps ecosystem, components, stakeholders that fit together to achieve those environmental benefits, some challenges, and some next steps. So some background about EPA. The mission is, you might know, is about protecting human health and the environment. And we've got a broad range of data, everything from compliance history about factories, environmental condition, or pollution emitted in different media, air, water, or land. And we make the data available for various reasons. Some of them are statutory, like the Clean Air Act. Some of them are federal requirements, like the Open Government Directive. And some of them have to do with increasing demand, like transparency. And over the years, EPA has been a leader in getting our data out there. So in more recent history, we created an information access strategy in 2008 to 9, and we looked at different segments of the public, the environmental information consuming public, and asked them what kind of information they wanted, why, and how they would use it. And we held focus groups, we used blogs and wikis, we actually held jam sessions and focused on specific subtopics for a few days and synthesized that all into an information access strategy and later into an implementation plan. Similarly, for the Open Government Directive, we of course made an open government plan and a strategic data action plan. And a lot of these URLs are at the very end of my presentation. You can just look at that online or ask me for it. But there's a whole page that has all the URLs. Let's see, and then we held in 2011 a challenge for developers. It was called Apps for the Environment, and we challenged developers to make apps, either mobile or web apps, using EPA data about the environment. Very broad, and because we didn't offer any money, we didn't put many constraints, and we just offered recognition. And we got 38 apps over the course of one summer, 2.5 months. And we had a lot of attention from the White House, a lot of internal involvement. We had a big forum at the end with EPA's air program and water program and other programmatic offices also describing the kinds of issues they'd like to be addressed with apps like this. We held a hackathon with American University. We asked the public, what kinds of apps would you like to have that don't exist now? And they provided us with 100 ideas. So a lot of good fodder. As I mentioned, we held some listening events, and of course we posted a lot of data to data.gov and some of its communities. They have sort of communities of practice now, or communities of interest, I guess you could say, for energy, for safety, and things like that. Some of EPA's data shows up there as well. And some of the most popular data from EPA are the toxics release inventory, which deals with toxic pollutants from factories, and the real-time air monitoring data in metropolitan areas across the country. So now I'm actually going to shift gears and talk to you about how some kind of an evolution of open data and the way we see it here. It's kind of stage one is just making the data available. So it's, we collected this data to prove environmental compliance, and then we said to people, it's there. And we didn't even actually find out who it would be used for or anything. We collected it for our purposes, and we were done with it. So as time passed, we moved to this next stage, what I'm calling stage 2 here, where we said, all right, there are data providers and data users. So it's looking for secondary uses of data, uses that weren't originally intended to be used for that data. And we started to think of what are these different information audiences and how can we reach them. Stage 3 is when we realized we couldn't reach everyone. EPA can't reach 300 million people in the United States. And one of the key kind of groups we started working with was information intermediaries like journalists, teachers, researchers, people who could interpret the information and package it for other people. because there's so many sub-uses for the information that we couldn't possibly imagine what they would all be. But these intermediaries, they might even be community organizers, might be able to take our data, package it onto a one-pager, bring that to a community meeting or a town hall meeting, and describe the issue in terms that make sense for those people. And then a sort of a small evolution from there is looking at the app world, where the intermediaries here are the developers, and the users are the app users themselves. All right, and the thing is, though, before the data even gets to the data providers, the kind of oval in the middle there that we've already seen and the stuff to the right, there's a lot of stuff that happens beforehand, before it gets from data to being accessible data. You have to check for privacy and quality issues, you have to apply metadata, and you have to get some kind of approval for the testing. And similarly, after you have kind of that earlier chain we just looked at, in order to realize the benefits of having these apps, you have to make sure that people are aware of them, they use them, and they actually take some kind of action to protect the environment. So this is kind of a logic model that shows the value chain from going from data to environmental benefits. It's where you realize the real value of data. So building on that, the Apps for the Environment Challenge, and with this new insight and talking to many, many parties, EPA is focused a little less on developers and a little more on app users. All right, we've created this green apps effort, where we help people. The objective is to help people use apps to make better environmental decisions, whether it be a purchasing decision, an energy reduction kind of decision about their house, or an understanding about a local watershed and how they may be able to clean it up. So we launched the My Green Apps website, which has over 170 existing apps, about 8 of which are from EPA. So the rest of the world is where all the action is. And just to kind of prove that, to see what the scale, what was out there, and to prove that this area has some interest. Then we've actually engaged people to take those 100 ideas that they gave us before and prioritize them. So we let people kind of do a little thumbs up, a vote kind of thing, and tell us what they like most. And using this prioritized list, we are going to ask people to flesh those ideas out, make them into more exact and problem statements that might say, instead of just clean up a river app, it could be clean up a river in a way that I can use when I'm hiking, or a way that I can use on a river cleanup, or a way that I can use to manage a whole watershed. So if we can get the exact kinds of tasks that people are trying to work on, that would be great. And with those top vote getters, though, we want to do this last step and engage developers and say, look, we've done some market research for you. Here's what the people have said they want. Developers, now you can understand the context better. From this kind of requirements document that we put online, you can understand the tasks that people want to have done. And for potential sponsors, which was a missing element before, people who could actually pay for the development of the apps, we could say to them, look, we've done some market research. So if we look at that list, the diagram from before, it now is a little more complete. It's a little more complicated because it starts to reflect reality a little bit more. But you can see that you still have the data to data providers, to developers, to app users, to environmental benefits chain. But the two new elements are on the lower left. There we have sponsors who actually would pay for the development of an app instead of having a developer foot the bill and have the app eventually fall flat. And we have some feedback from app users. On the top, we have feedback from the users about what kinds of data they want, and that helps the data providers. And on the bottom, we have feedback from app users about the kinds of apps they want, that they send signals, market signals, to developers. So before I finish, though, I want to quickly go through a few challenges for making data open, because you all know that open data is a new way of doing business. So for 4 challenges here, we've got managers. First, managers are concerned about the misuse of data. They're concerned that someone may use their data that would do something against the mission of our organization. And one of the potential solutions for that is to build bridges between agencies, developers, and data users, bring the people who would use the data into the tent in the first place and kind of befriend them and understand how people are using the data. A second challenge is that agencies don't recognize the value of data reuse. So the solution there is to show the relationship, the value of data and how it could come to environmental benefit and actually yield that result. And similarly, the agency, because it has a shrinking budget, as lots of parties do, has to identify needs that other parties can fill. All right. Two more challenges, just quickly as I wrap up here. The third one is the focus has been on collecting and reporting data. That's because the statutes require that level of activity. But in this new world, we're going to have to do something different. A couple of potential solutions are describe exactly how to make the data open. We should describe what kinds of formats are needed, what kinds of data services should be provided, and give these things, the data, to developers so that they can use it easily and can have the context with appropriate metadata and so on. And similarly, we can make open data a requirement. When a database is formed or when it's revised, we can require that its data be fed out. And finally, the fourth challenge here is that right now, for data that's already publicly available, we need a senior level manager to approve it before it can be listed in data.gov. So this is a quirky kind of bureaucratic thing that we have to help streamline that data posting process and delegate the authority to lower level staff as managers feel more comfortable with the value that they're getting from their data. So just to close here, some final steps that EPA is going to take. We're going to help people find these existing apps through the My Green Apps website. We're going to engage people to prioritize the apps they want, ask them to vote. We're going to make our data more available based on their feedback and be responsive. And finally, we're going to build relationships with these key stakeholders using EPA's convening ability to bring them together. So that's the perspective from EPA. We've made some progress. We've identified some ways to overcome some of the challenges, and we're committed to engaging with customers into the future. Thank you.